All right, so welcome to slide number 6, and I think this is the third one that I'll be doing to kind of remind you of the different steps to solving two-step inequalities. The one thing that we need to look at is that we don't have any distribution that we need to do. We don't distribute anything in this one like we were doing in the last couple. What we're doing here is we need to remember to combine like terms. So the one thing that we need to do is look at what terms are the same on each side of the inequality. We don't want to circle the 5 and the 23 because they're separated by our inequality symbol. But we do have a negative 7x and a negative 2x. So what I want to do is write this again, rewrite it. That just sounds funny. And combine those or put them together so you can see how this is going to flow. So negative 7x, I'm just going to move. Now notice how when I circled these, I circled the sign as well. And notice this sign goes with this number. The sign goes with the number it's connected to. So that would be a negative 2x, and then I have my positive 5. So I am also, so you can see it a little more clearly, going to bold that. So that way you can see what we're doing. We are going to combine this negative 7x and negative 2x. Now, when you have a negative number and a negative number together, the rule is you always add the opposite. So what we end up doing is just showing it to you like that. We're going to add the opposite or replace that blank spot with a plus sign or an addition sign. So when two negative numbers are together, negative 7x, negative 2x, you're just adding them to make it a bigger negative number. So let's rewrite this by combining those. So we're going to bring down our 23 is less than or equal to, let me put that together. So negative 7x plus negative 2x is negative 9x plus 5. And now you've seen this, so we know what we need to do. We need to go ahead and do the opposite or the inverse operation. We're getting rid of our positive 5 first because it's further away from our x. We need to do the opposite of a positive 5, which is a negative 5. So I'm going to go ahead and bold that there. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. What I do to one side, I have to do to both sides. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the math. 23 minus 5 is, that would be 18, is greater than or equal, or I'm sorry, less than or equal to, not greater than, less than or equal to. And then I have my negative 9x because my positive 5 and my negative 5 cancel each other out. At this point, I am going to do, the opposite of the multiplication that's happening here. So I have negative 9 multiplying with my x. So I am going to divide by negative 9. And I'm going to do that on both sides. You need to make sure that that negative sign follows your number and it cancels it out. So now I have 18 divided by negative 9 is negative 2. Is less than or equal to x. All right, so now we need to think back to one of our rules. We need to not forget one of our most important rules. If up at the top, if I have a multiplication or division of a negative number for my variable, or my variable is being multiplied or divided by a negative number, I need to switch this sign right here. I need to flip it. So instead of a less than, I'm going to do a greater than. That's very important that you remember to flip that sign. And you can tell up here, again, a negative number is being multiplied by my variable or divided by the variable. Either way, or your variable is being multiplied or divided by a negative number. That's when you flip that sign on the bottom. Very important to remember. Now, is it a closed or open circle? Well, I have a line underneath my greater than sign, so it's a closed circle. I am going to place it on my negative 2. Now, I have my variable on the right side. So as I read this, negative 2 is greater than or equal to my x. So my x is going to be less than my negative 2. See how much harder that is to kind of figure out? I'm trying to sit here. If I was reading that, I would probably sit here and go -2 greater than or equal to. I would pull this arrow down just because of how I'm reading it. But that's not what it's saying. What it's saying is you're trying to fill in this X. So what I would do is this, I would flip it or rewrite it to be X is less than or, whoops, less than or equal to, oh, whoops, hold on, sorry, less than or equal to my -2. Now, if you look at this, you will notice that it's the same thing. The -2, the greater than sign, it's still being eaten by the alligator. -2 is still being eaten by the alligator. It's still pointing in the same direction towards the same thing. But this right here, with my variable on the left side, look, my inequality sign is pointing which way my arrow should be pointing. If the inequality is on the right side, your inequality symbol is pointing in the opposite direction that your arrow should be pointing on. So what I do for me, so I can always graph them correctly, is I always will put my variable on the left side. I will flip it so that way I know I'm graphing it correctly. However you want to do it is up to you. If you want to leave it this way, because remember we had to flip that inequality sign, and so we needed to make sure it was going the right way. So not to confuse you at all, because these two are the same exact thing right here. But since our variable started on the right side, you can leave it on the right side. Just make sure that your arrow on your graph is pointing in the right direction. If you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully I didn't confuse you too much. But the takeaway from this is you combine your like terms. You make sure that you flip your inequality symbol on the bottom to make sure you flip it because of you're multiplying your variable by a negative number. Okay? And then you graph it.